Welcome to Never Stop Healing. And today I've got Dan Sullivan on, and you guys remember him from previous episodes, but not only is he the entrepreneurial coach of the century, I'm going to give him that award. Dan, you don't mind if I give you a few awards?
No, I just cleaned out space on a shelf. If it's not too big, I think it'll be prominently featured.
Okay, so trophies on the way. But not only has he inspired more entrepreneurs than probably any other human on the planet, but Dan's got some unique gifts, unique capabilities of helping us think about our thinking. And he'll do that for you today. The other gift that he's got is he's somewhat of an artist in the way that he structures words, and an artist in the way that he writes and thinks about things. He's got best-selling books right now that he's written with Benjamin Hardy, Who Not How, which was a favorite of mine. And then Gap in the Gain, which my team, I can tell you, Dan, of all the books they've read, The Gap in the Gain, that one really connected in with them. And then you have another book with Benjamin coming out soon. What's that book called?
Yeah, this is the third in a series. So we have an agreement with Hay House Publishers out of California, and Ben is a terrific. He's a terrific writer of lawn books. I'm not a terrific writer of lawn books. I'm not a terrific doer of anything that takes a long time. And but Ben, we met through Joe Polish's Genius Network, his program, where we're both participants in Joe Polish's program. And Ben knew of me, before before he met me. He had read some of my small books and read them, and he said, if you ever thought about doing a lawn book and you didn't want to do the major work on it, he said, I'd be happy to be the writer on it. And it was at the right time. He was the right person, and we had the right opportunity with Hay House. And so we've had two of them out there, and I think we're at about the 400,000 mark in copies sold. A little bit more of the Who Not How, because it was out a year previously to the second one. And our third one, which was supposed to come out in October, is now going to come out in February of 23. And it's due to a paper shortage. Strangely,
Oh, wow.
strangely enough, the supply chains for paper have put some of the publishers behind schedule. And actually, I'm just as happy it gave us a few more months to complete what we're doing. And generally speaking, all the examples in the books are from entrepreneurs and strategic coach. So the next book is called 10 Times is Easier Than 2 Times. And it's a major thinking process in strategic coach, as are the other two. So we have lots of entrepreneurs that he can use who have years of utilizing the strategies to achieve entrepreneurial success. So yeah, it's a thrill. It's a thrill.
Yeah.
He's a marvelous partner to work with, and in 2 books I've not changed a word.
You see the book, they give you the manuscript, and you sign off on it.
Yeah,
That's impressive. That's a partnership there.
yeah. Well, he's a great writer, and we'll have a conversation about something, and I'll say, well, there's another dimension you might think about here, and we'll talk about it, and it's recorded, so he'll transcribe my thoughts, and then it'll come back and he'll reflect what we talked about. And he's very, very open to the fact that I've been coaching for almost 50 years. So he takes that, but I'm very, very respectful of the fact that he's a lot better writer than I am.
It's a good collaboration.
Yeah.
Well, I loved listening to it on Audible, because then and I'd recommend everyone get it on Audible, get the paper or get the hardback copy as well. But on Audible, you can hear the interviews, which is great because it's just a deep dive into Dan Sullivan's brain, which we're talking about today. And Dan, you celebrated your halftime birthday.
I did. You can provide the context afterwards, but in 1987, so I was born in 1944. I was born historically, it was kind of a very, very historic moment when I arrived on the planet. Not because I arrived on the planet, but uh, 2 weeks later was the battle of the invasion of Normandy, so the Normandy invasion. And so that, it has world history, impact. And so in 1987, I was 43, and I was watching here in Canada, where home base is Toronto, and there was just a fascinating documentary on people who had been born in the year 1900, who are now 87, who had a goal to get to 2000, to the year 2000. Therefore, when they were 100 years old, it would also match a complete century, calendar century that they had lived. And I found it fascinating. And in the course of the interviews, they talked about all the different experiences, and it's a very eventful century, the 20th century was. And so I was just thinking, I was just perusing. I said, it'd really be neat to, kind of actually experience from the very beginning of a century to the end of the century. And I thought about it a little more, and I said, what I'm going to do? I'm going to consider the first, so I'm going to have 56 years in the 20th century. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add 100 years to the 56. So my lifetime goal will be 156. I'll just treat the first 56 years as sort of training wheels and R&D and trial and error, and then we'll get serious about things when I get to the 21st century. And it was just a whimsical thought. And then as I thought about it I kept going back to the thought, and I have a rule that any thought that I just keep coming back to, that it's kind of an important thought. So I said, what I'm going to do is just see how long it takes me to convince my brain that this is a good goal, it's a normal goal, and that, that every time I think of my lifetime, I think of 156 as my new number. And, about that time, and certainly, maybe around 2000, the average lifespan for males. I'm originally from the States. I mean, I live in Toronto. We also live in Chicago, but Toronto is the main base. So the average lifespan on a lot of actuarial tables around that time was 78. So I'm essentially doubling. I'm doubling, and it took me about 2 years. And every time I'd think of my lifetime, I'd think of the number 156. And about 2 years in, it took hold, and I'm firmly in the grips of it now. Almost 35 years that I've been thinking about this 156 thing. And Regan, and we've talked about this before, so it's not so much that I think a lot about getting to 156, but having 156 be a normal thought in my mind really, really has altered how I live in the present. I'm much, much fitter. I would say at 78, I'm probably fitter in many ways than I was, at 43. At 43, wow. I mean, I exercise consistently and systematically in a way that I never did then. I get checked up all the time. Anything that needs mending, I get at it right away. Use supplements, to enhance my nutrition, and so anyway, and the other thing is that I always feel like I have lots of time for everything. I never feel that I'm running out of time, or it's too late for something, or it's too late in life to take on really big goals. So it changed my sense of time. It changed my sense of fitness and health. And here I am at 78, and you know some of the goals because you see them in our workshop materials. Because I always use my own goal setting for for sample copy when we suggest new things. And the goals I have now were unthinkable to me 25 years ago. I mean, the goals are so much bigger. So it's an interesting thing that the thought of life extension actually, to a certain extent, calms you down. It gives you a sense. You don't worry about it. You'll have time to do everything you want to do. So that's the backstory. The backstory. And we've talked about this ever since I met you.
Well, it's fascinating because if you look at life expectancy overall, it's doubled, and that's pretty phenomenal. But if we look at the amount,
doubled during the 20th century.
in the last 100 years,
in the last 100
years, it's doubled. But then, if you look at the health span, and if you couple health span on top of lifespan, we haven't really improved health span much at all in the last 100 years. And that's
now we can keep sick people living longer. We can keep people who are weak and sick and not feeling so great. We can keep them living longer, and actually the vast majority of spending in the healthcare system is in the first 6 months after birth and the last 6 months before death.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Medicare spending, I think it's almost 90% is spent on that last 6 months where we're just helping people hang on. And so, I love that.
Testing out new things. And
right. Here's the experiment.
It doesn't matter. Who knows why they died.
Right. Yeah. The lawyers don't have a lot of teeth to sink their mouth into anything at that stage of life. But yeah, compressed morbidity is, you get to the end and you die really fast. And that's, I think that's what the very first lesson my Japanese teacher taught me was she was helping a patient who had terminal cancer let go. And she just said, look, it's time to die. It's okay. Your husband's going to be fine. Your family's going to be fine. And I remember when I was watching her in that experience, it was, I expected to see her, in my first experience witnessing her in her healing practice, I expected her to be, doing some crazy herbal concoction and helping rescue this patient. But she said, you need to let go. It's okay. And the husband of this woman, he called us the next morning and said, hey, my wife passed away last night. I don't know what happened, but I just want to thank you. She'd been hanging on for 7 years, and it was 7 miserable years of her life. And we are all grateful that she's finally moved on. So yeah, we in the United States, we've done really well at hanging on to life when there's, maybe there's something else that we need to let people move on to. Mm-hmm. So the thing I love about you, Dan, though, is you're filling in your 156 goal. You say, hey, well, people have asked you, what if you get to 150? You say, well, maybe I'll renegotiate and, put a new thought in.
Here's the thing. I tell you, the ability to get to 150 right now doesn't exist. And, right. The Hayflick barrier, which is, I don't know if it's accepted scientifically, but it's certainly accepted based on the fact that I think where we have accurate records, there's only one person who's actually made it to 120, and that was the lady in France, southern France, who I think she died about a decade ago, actually at 122. So she's got the record for 3 years, 120, 121, 122. But things fall apart. The cells only reproduce a certain number of times, but they're not in sync with each other. So certain cells speed up and, they deteriorate faster than other cells. And we call the deterioration or the cells slowing down and stopping, we call that disease.
Right. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, and if you just said, okay, well, if we just solve the one disease, and that's aging right there. Are
Yeah.
you familiar with the nine hallmarks of aging? Have you seen that literature at all?
I haven't. I've seen the eight. There's sort of Dr. Rudy Tanzi, who's a neurologist in Boston. He shared with us. We were on a sort of a deep dive um, investigation of breakthrough longevity and age reversal. Breakthroughs scientifically and medically with a collaborating partner that I have, Peter Diamandis, who's very, very much at the forefront of regenerative health.
Mhm.
And we saw Dr. Tanzi, and he's really well known. I mean, if you go to Google or Wikipedia and you punch in his name, you'll see that he's really considered one of the foremost leading thinkers about cognitive health. So, and one of the big things is is there a cure for, dementia? And he said that, there's certain habits and certainly daily practices which will, if, insofar as you can keep your thinking abilities really happy, these things we're doing. So I was familiar with that, but I wasn't with the nine hallmarks of actually going the other way. I guess this is
Yeah. Well,
nine. But I'm fascinated because I have a new exercise for our second. We'll talk about the lifetime extender in
true.
a little bit, but it's called uh, uh, when death is the solution. So I have 10 things that people keep talking about the problem of death. And I said, well, actually, you're looking at it wrongly. You should look at it as a solution because people die for purposes that are even worse than death. you know, it's
True.
like addiction. Addiction is not the problem. Addiction is the solution, an attempted solution at something that's far worse. And
Right.
yeah.
And
That's
and
Joe Polish. I got that line from Joe Polish, and but he was applying it to addiction. He's very much devoted to treating addiction as a disease rather than sort of almost like a criminal. And I said, well, I mean, there's a spectrum of people, and do it. But I said, I think that if you talk something that's bad you see as a solution, it really forces you to go deeper to see what the real problem is. And I think that treating death as a solution, you go deeper and say, why would death be a solution? And one of them is just that you're in chronic pain that simply can't be relieved. You know,
yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
I totally understand why someone would choose death.
Yeah. Well, my patients who've had migraine headaches, they get so intense, and I've had a couple of those commit suicide because it's just unbearable. So that would be one of the
Yep.
reasons why death
It's
uh,
a solution. It's a
is the
solution.
solution. What's another reason that you've come up with?
Yeah, and they're fairly, they're fairly observable things in people. Uh, uh, they've run out of friends.
Hmm.
Our friendships for most people are peer related. They're sideways peer related. So
Yeah.
if you're 75, your youngest friend will be 70, and your oldest friend will be 80,
Yeah.
and they're dying now. They're starting to die frequently, and I think every time you lose a friend that meant a lot to you emotionally, it's a real hit. But quantitatively, you only have a certain number of friends, and the number starts getting smaller and smaller. And I think that when all friends have gone, you've lost most of your social reasons for being alive.
Yeah.
And it's not that you'll die of that, but your immunity will be lowered. Your ability to bounce back, your ability to offset, the onset of disease, and that I think is weaken. And then if you combine with that they've run out of money, they've run out of money, so they have no friends, and they're now totally dependent upon strangers, for their upkeep. And the other one is they have no purpose. Their purpose was their occupation, which they retired from, and so you put I call it the trifecta: no friends, no money, and no purpose. You'll get out of here real quick.
So, so is the purpose of this thinking tool the 10 ways death is the solution? Is this to say, hey, avoid these traps?
Well, to counter, if you see yourself, you can sort of fall into these things gradually without really even realizing
Yeah.
that you're into them. And then I think the other thing is no novelty. There's absolutely
Right.
nothing new in your life, so you're not stimulated. Your brain is not stimulated, and you have no. And the other thing is the absence of challenging fear and excitement. You know,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, like I always try to keep myself at least once a quarter scared for about 3 or 4 days because I'm planning something new and I don't know how it'll go. Yesterday was the day because I started a new quarters workshops. And honestly, the three, and this is my 131st quarter that I've created a new
And you
workshop.
still get nervous. You still have
Yeah, the
excitement.
last 3 days. And it's not that I'm afraid of failing, it's afraid that I have a standard of what a great workshop is, and I move it up a little bit every quarter, and I'm afraid I won't take it up a notch, and this will be the first quarter I haven't taken it up a notch, and I get really scared about that. The other thing is, I can only prepare 50% of a new workshop, and the clients, the entrepreneurs in the room, provide the other. It's their response, which
Mm.
tells me I have a good workshop. So I always get scared, and I'm excited and I'm scared, and I think that it's the right octane mix for growth. Is that you always have opportunity fear,
Yeah.
you always have challenge fear, and I think that it really keeps you alive.
Well, yeah, because you're building a muscle, and if you're not challenging your mind, and I mean that's what gives you a sense of purpose too. Is there's no purpose if there's not a barrier, an obstacle that you've got to confront. And so if you're coasting and you say, "Oh, my workshops are good enough," then you've got no barrier. So it's such an interesting thing because truth be told, I hadn't gone to a live workshop in 2.5 years because of COVID. It was December of 2019, and then I saw you again in March of 2022. And so I wondered. I said, "Are they going to change anything? What's the workshop going to feel like?" And I was entering into the new Free Zone group, which was, I really appreciate you inviting me to that. That was amazing. But I just noticed everything was even better. You looked healthier, you look more vibrant. There's just a level of ease that I have never seen before. But you being at ease puts us all at ease, and then it created a really stimulating conversation. So
Yeah.
so fear and excitement is one of those mindsets.
Yeah, it's a sort of a combination, and you don't have any more, and one of the things is, I think this is the most deliberate way to kill yourself, is to look forward to the point where you have no more risk in your life. And I
Yeah.
see this a lot with retirement thinking.
Um,
My if it's not well known, it will be known after this podcast that I'm a total opponent of the idea of retirement. Because I think it's the decline of health and the onset of death is very, very quick after you retire from an occupation. For a lot of people, has provided extraordinarily structure, a very, very positive process for people. It's where they experience their greatest teamwork. It's where they experience their greatest applause.
Yeah.
and everything. And you want to retire from that. And I tell you that there's nothing the absence of all those things does to keep you alive.
Well, it's a sense that you're doing something useful and making progress, because, progress gives us meaning in life.
Yeah.
And, retirement is, yeah, I mean, just as you've mentioned before, the definition of the word is to render something useless, or to
Yeah. Take it out of use.
take it out of use.
Take it out of use. I mean, that's what they do with, you know, workhorses, battleships, they,
Right. Let's retire them. So, other mindset, one of the interesting mindsets that you have is, and it helps me think of my relationship with myself, but you happen to be really good friends with yourself. You like Dan.
Mhm.
And is that one of the mindsets? Because if you have a poor relationship with yourself, or does that go back into the relationships category?
Yeah, well, I think the counter of that, going along with why death is,
The
death is
solution, yeah.
solution is that you actually don't need outside enemies because you've always had one inside. That your worst critic is inside you. The person that you can never satisfy is inside you. The person who never rewards you for you get reward from the outside, people praise you and everything. There's no praise and everything. And at a certain point, you'd like to get away from that person.
Right. Yes.
And I think a lot of
True.
addiction is to get away from that person. That when I have a couple of drinks, I don't feel that self-hatred.
Yeah.
And I almost picture it as like two people. You've created another person inside yourself that that just will never give you a break. And gives
Always
you no
there.
encouragement, gives you no encouragement.
Yeah. Yeah. Just constantly self-doubt, criticism. So how have you been able to absolve that side of the thinking? Because we all have that to
Yeah,
our.
I mean, I can certainly remember times in my life, but compared with how other people have described their experience of it, I probably had a minor dose of it, but it was, probably, I can't um, accurately tell you, you know, but I think it was about the time where I went through a divorce and a bankruptcy at the same time
Mhm.
in the 1978, August 13th, if you want.
Not that you remember the day or anything.
If,
Yeah.
actually, it was August 15th. And the thing was that, you can interpret a divorce, there's a document and there's, the bankruptcy, there's a document, a legal document. And they're like, one way of looking at it, they're really bad report cards. You just flunked, you know.
Flunked out of school there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you flunked a relationship and you
I,
flunked an enterprise, and the one thing you find is that nobody wants to talk to you about them. They don't throw you parties and come on over and tell us about your divorce and bankruptcy. People they just
right.
do that. So there was a period of aloneness for probably 3 or 4 months before I got some traction in both. Not the relationship one, because someone had given me advice that the best solution to get back on your feet economically is work, and the best solution to get over a lost relationship is work. Just work really hard, keep yourself busy, and yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, it's good for work is not bad for you. Work is good for you. So working extra, working longer is not injurious. And but what I began to realize was that I had this critic inside me. And I said, I'm going to get rid of the critic. And one way that the critic showed up for me is when I would think about having something, it would tell me why do you want that? And you would negate your ambition. It was almost like you were negating your ambition. And so I set myself uh, that if I don't do anything, I'm going to change my brain. And I took journaling as the vehicle for doing this, of writing in a daily journal. And the mission was pretty simple, that every day I would write down something that I wanted, and the moment uh, the self-critical voice came in, I would say, "That's it for today. I want this." And so every day I would just write what I wanted, but that was the end of the activity. And I set myself that I would do this for 25 years, and I did it for 25. I said it took me a long time to get the negative
Wow.
attitude toward myself. So I said, well, I have to be fair and give myself a lot of time to actually undo, the influence of this self-critical. And sometime during that period, I got to the point, and I said, well, let's not only get rid of the critic, let's replace the critic with someone who really likes me.
That's
So,
great.
and it's grown, and I really, I would say now, that was quite a long time ago. That was I was 34 years old, so I'm 44 years ago. And I really have a sense that I have a friend inside me, and your friends, you cut your friends a lot of slack. I
Yeah.
mean, you like the person, and he does this and he does that, and he said, well, he does that and everything like that, and he always delivers when there's a commitment, and he always shows up on time. He always just give him credit for all the good stuff. So I developed this since there was a vacancy, I filled it with another.
Well, I think that's yeah, one of the solutions. When death is the solution, I think it's, yeah, when we have not cultivated that. So 25 years of writing down what you
Yeah,
want.
and I did it except for 12 days. And there's,
Man,
I can give you the exact number of days in 25 years. It's 9,131. And the other
wow.
thing is, I gave myself a break if I missed a day,
Yeah.
and so there was actually, we were out with friends. Babs and I were out with friends, and I said, I just want to tell you, this was the New Year's in 2003. So the next day was 2004. So New Year's Eve 2003, I said, I'm just completing a 25-year project tonight. So I did it, and I did it. I did it. But a lot of things came about it, was the ability just to say what I want, and not have any static or any interference with what I want.
Man. Well, and that's a big muscle that you built up, the wanting what you want. And Dan's got a great book called Wanting What You Want. So you go to strategiccoach.com, there's resources there that are phenomenal.
Mhm.
But I love that book. And
Yeah. Yeah,
it,
you can download the ebook. It's got I don't know, it's got a video, it's got an audio with it. I don't think it has a video with it, but yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's a good
yeah,
book.
it's a really good book. So what are some of the other mindsets?
Well, I think the mindset, the mindsets. So I have three or four, and I can't recall them right now for this, but I've given you about six of
Yeah.
the reasons why death is a solution, and I'm not doing this as a joke, with people. I said, people think this way. I said, the behavior where people voluntarily die, I mean, there's, a lot of people have sort of a slow suicide, so it can't be called suicide. It's just that they kind of talk themselves into the grave. And I've noticed the self-talk a lot as people have stopped things. Their work life is over, their new interest life is over. the most important relationships are over. They're now using up their savings. They're not, they're not adding to their income and everything else. And and I said, if you sped this up by if you sped this up by 10 times, they're doing it over 5 years. I said, if you sped this up 10 times, it would kind of look like suicide.
It's true. That's great. Just speed up the process,
You
yeah.
know,
Or make some big changes,
yeah,
right?
a coroner wouldn't necessarily sign the document, but I can tell people when they've lost it. They've just lost the will to, um, uh, you know, they've just lost the will to live. I'm not saying they have the will to die, but they've lost the will to live.
Well, and this is what I see in my practice is when people actually commit to their health, they have maybe been in that stage where death is the solution, and then they kind of pop out of it, whether there's, they actually have a spouse or a family member or a friend, somebody who just kind of has they help them confront the health issues that they're having. And then once they have that realization that, man, maybe there's more to life than what I'm currently accepting, then they really start taking it seriously. And those are the fun people to work with because they see complete transformations.
Yeah, generally, I mean, you probably have pretty good age span from youngest who
Mhm.
work with you to the oldest. What would you say it is? 40 years, 50 years?
Oh, at least, yeah. I mean, because I'm treating generations. I have 5-year-olds to 95-year-olds. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But the interesting thing is, uh, being young is actually an attitude. It's not it's not a
a
state.
number.
It's
Yeah.
not a state. It's not. Yeah, it's not an age number chronologically. And I think I have a fairly young spirit.
Hmm.
I mean, when I think about myself, and I think I have fairly significant childhood memories. I mean, I remember an awful lot about childhood, and it seems to me that the person I was when I was 7 is exactly the same person that I'm living in right now. That I mean, I'm more skillful. All the skills that you acquire and knowledge and capabilities and everything else. Obviously, that's been added to it, but uh, I can very very easily see myself walking through the fields of our farm and through the woods, at the back of our farm, and I just totally experienced who that 7-year-old was, and I think entrepreneurs especially are most like who they were when they were a kid.
Yeah.
They're the adults in the world who are most like they were when they didn't grow out of their youthful enthusiasm and their youthful aspirations.
Yeah, there's a sense of curiosity, and that's one of the things I love about strategic coaches. We sit down and we all talk, and we don't have the answers. That's the beautiful thing about entrepreneurism is, we're just asking questions and learning from each other. And yeah, I think what happens to people as they age, I think when it goes from that when they're biologically, they're like, oh, I'm 78, I'm going to act like a 78-year-old. That's when you lose curiosity and you have all the answers. But Dan, you're not, and you're someone who's never stopped asking the questions.
Yeah, and I'm intrigued. One thing that keeps me fascinated is just the really, really cool things the entrepreneurs are doing. And I mean, Steve Krine and
Mm.
I on Friday, we have a podcast called Free Zone Frontier. It's about thought processes of being in a collaborative entrepreneurial world rather than a competitive entrepreneurial world. And we had Keegan Caldwell, and you might have talked to Keegan at the
Yeah.
summit because
Yeah.
Keegan's IP lawyer,
Right.
and
Fun guy. Yeah.
yeah, and he was telling us stuff that I had my mouth dropping open, and he was talking about the software he can use, two in particular, and I'm really going to have him give a spotlight presentation at the Free Zone. One of them is that his, the IP covers a lot of things. It's copyrights, trademarks. There's trade design, there's trade secrets, and everything else. But primarily at the level that an IP lawyer like Keegan is operating, you're talking about patents.
Yeah.
And patents are kind of like the nuclear weapons of intellectual property. You got a patent, and they're easy to prosecute someone else if you have the patent. It's like the sign, vicious dog inside, and you don't believe it, and the dog's even more vicious than you thought.
Yep. Beware of dog.
Yeah, beware of dog, and you find out that's the least of the
Real.
story. Yes. Yeah. And but he was telling us about two software programs, and one of them is there's a software that the moment that you come up and it's ready to submit for a patent, it'll calculate just almost to the month that you'll get the patent just based on what the substance of it is, and it just comes from long studying of patents and how long it takes. And the Patent Bureau is really busy, and the demand for patents is greater than their ability to respond to them. So they've worked out all sorts of filters. And what this software does is take advantage of the actual filters that the Patent Bureau has. And I said, man, how valuable is that? How
It puts it right to the front of the line then.
Yeah. And the other one that he has, which really amazed me, is that if you have IP, you've created intellectual property in terms of methods and procedures, and you've taken care to, in the first instance, just copyright them, and some of them legitimately deserve trademarks because they have an unusual design and everything like that, unusual name, unusual design. And you've done a good job of protecting them. There's a service now that will come in and evaluate the future value of your IP, regardless of whether you're using it or not. But they'll extend it, let's say, over a 10-year period, what the value of this was. And they'll establish a valuation on your IP. So, for example, we've really upgraded all of our concepts and tools in the program over the last 2 years. And we have over 500 copyrights, United States, Canada.
Wow.
If you have the United States, you pretty well are all set if you have a U.S. copyrights. And so they could come in and evaluate, and they say, we estimate that, and they understand how we use them. We deliver them in workshops, and the workshops have a fairly predictable subscription rate. Over many years, and they say we evaluate it's worth $50 million.
Wow.
I'm just putting that out as an example. I'm not saying because this was Friday. I haven't done it yet.
Okay, but they could give you an exact dollar.
But then there's a bank that goes along with this, and they'll lend you up to half of your valuation right on the spot.
Now that could be a multiplier for a lot of businesses out there. I mean,
it means you don't have to give up any ownership to get upfront investment. And I'm just sitting there and I say, this is unbelievable.
Wow.
This is unbelievable. But what it does, it tells you how important it is right up front to make sure that you use what's available. I mean, the government makes this available, that you can protect your ideas, and it puts your emphasis on packaging things, really, differentiating yourself through packaging, and having really great processes that are they're like algorithms. If you do this and this and this, you get this result. So it was really great, so Steve Krein has clients who probably have thousands of these things. So Steve was sitting there and saying, wow, and everything.
I need to look into this too. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, we'll have, certainly we have the two main free zone meetings. Probably, I think that Keegan usually comes to the one coming up. It would be in the second month. It wouldn't be the first month one. He would come to the second month one. But I'll just have him do a little spotlight on, we'll do 15 minutes Q&A, or I
Yeah.
mean, we'll do a half-hour Q&A with him and everything like that. But boy, I tell you, that was an eye-opener for me. But I was saying, I'm 78, and I'm as excited as if I just got a new, I just found, yeah.
Yeah, you just got accepted into college or something, right? Yeah, it's just
I just lost one of the baby teeth, and a permanent one came in.
Tooth Fairy left you some
Yeah,
money.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But that and what I was saying, that my ability to be surprised and delighted by new things is not any different than when I was 7 years old.
Man. Well, I think that's, I mean, if you look at when death is the solution, I mean, that's keeping that sense of awe about life, curiosity. I mean, you have just a deep sense of respect for life is what it shows me. There's just this nonstop ability to see things from a different perspective, because
Yeah.
I think so often our brains get conditioned to just we want things predictable. If they don't go our way, we're going to be negative. We're gonna throw a little fit. You've got a lot of emotional intelligence that you've built into your day-to-day process, and I don't think we don't talk about emotions a lot in Strategic Coach, but I think at the core of it, it's all about managing energy, but emotional energy is kind of that big.
Well, I think that that we're emotional creatures. I think
Yeah.
intelligence comes in second. Our sense
Mm,
of reason, or our sense of rationality, actually kicks in way after our emotions kick in.
right.
And I think we develop our intelligence to make sense of our emotions.
Yeah. Well, I love that, because and you've been able to interpret your emotions in brand new ways, and just that exercise, wanting what you want. Hey, for 25 years, I'm going to write down what I want, and yeah, you've built a great life and a great legacy
Yeah.
for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, I could do it because it was just one lifetime, and there's 8 million of them. So I mean, it wasn't like I was depriving the world of something by devoting myself to 8 billion
8
people,
billion, right? And
8 billion people. And but one thing, I came up with a tool yesterday, and it really demonstrated something that you just said about the emotional hit. And so I have this new process where you look at your company as, no matter what size company it is, if it's big, middle size, or it's gotten really big, there's just three things. There's the new shortcuts that you're creating. And then there's the programs where you take the shortcuts and put them into sort of a process. And then you have a program. Okay. And you probably, when you look at different age groups and different levels of health and fitness, you probably have quite a number of different programs,
mhm,
and different people in your organization who are the experts that are related to the different programs, and the coaches that are related to the different programs. And I think, you could analyze any business in the same way. And then the overall, everything you're doing, shortcuts and programs, you call your platform,
yeah.
and your platform is really where the valuation of your business actually is. It's what somebody would pay you for your business if you happen to think about it. So, and the group yesterday, this was a 10 times group. I got a feel for about half of them didn't get it the first time I did it 90 days ago. They just didn't
Mhm.
get it. I could see it. And I said, I got to really stretch their brain. So what I did is I took the lifetime extender, and I said, now I want you to do it on your company, the lifetime of your company. So we're going to
Oh,
extend the
wow.
lifetime of your company. And so
Wow.
we use the same form. So where you have birth, you have start of the company. So just
Yep.
for an example, You know, I mean, I did a lot of coaching before strategic coach, as you know, it really started. So, first 15 years, I didn't count as the start of the company. 1989, we opened, we had workshops, and it's been a continuous systematic activity since then. And then it's 2022, so that makes, I said, first age is 33, so the company's lasted 33 years. And I said, but how much longer is the company going to last? And I said, well, I'm going to take it right to my 156. So that's 78 more years. And I'm halfway. So
Um,
3 weeks ago, I was at the halfway point of 156. And so it'll be 2100. That means the extra years now that I've established for a strategic coach is 78 more years. And I had everybody do it, and it's real fast. I mean, they just
um,
put the numbers in. And then I have them fill in 6 impacts on your thinking just doing this exercise. And they filled it. I mean, they just wrote really, really fast. And then down at the bottom, what are you proud about what you've, morale, what are you proud about what you've created so far? And what's going on right now that gives you a real sense of confidence? And in the future, what are you really excited about? And it was an extraordinarily emotional next hour and a half, 2 hours. And people
wow.
just said, you know, I never realized it, but it's always bugged me in my mind that I'm going to outlive my company, and that
Mhm.
at a certain point, everything that I built is going to end, everything. But it was a thought that something that's always on your mind, but you can't wrap your mind around it and you can't think about
Yeah.
it. And then I had 5 team members at the back for yesterday's workshop. We had about 20 and 20 entrepreneurs in the program. And we went around and talked about it. Everybody was very, very emotional about this. They were very, very emotional. And they said, now my lifetime extender as a person really makes sense. I mean, this really makes sense to me. So I'm going to start off the number 2 workshop with this exercise when July, when we come back for the number 2 life extender workshop. I'm going to start that off. And
Oh man,
but I thought it'd be
that is
interesting.
great.
I'm going to fill in the sample copy. I have to put real sample copy because I just put it out there as a blank form. I didn't, and I'm going to fill in my sample. But I'll send you the PDF tonight so you can do it.
Oh, I'd love to see that. Well, I think it gives us a sense of an anchoring. It's like that's the purpose. And then there's relationships within, I mean, within my organizations, I love the relationships more than anything. I mean, it gives me a sense of accomplishment, but also a sense of connection. So I think you just freed up a ton of energy just by,
Well, the other thing, because I had my team members take part in I had that they all did the exercise, and I mean, they basically followed my direction because, and they all said that they didn't know what the relationship was between the company's life and the life that Dan and Babs, have projected,
yeah.
and that the fact that there were 78 more years actually really relaxed them. And it was funny because we have real longevity in our team, as you know.
Oh
We
yeah.
had 5 of them, and the total number of years they've been at coach is 99 years. They've been there 99
Wow.
years, and so they had, the youngest was 10 years in, and the oldest was like 27, and in terms of being in coach, and but but the other thing is it shows the unique advantage that entrepreneurs have
Yeah.
of creating your own company. And it's a vehicle that you've created for your, wealth, but you've also created for your health and your fitness and everything. The company is there to support you in ways that, working for a large organization where you have mandatory retirement at 65 and they're
Right.
trying to replace you. They're trying to give you an early out as much as they can, and and they have retirement counseling, so that you can get ready to. Since we already consider you useless, we should also give you some counseling on of not delaying too much to leave.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I love that tool that you created because the shortcuts is, the make it up and make it real, make it recur. And then the creativity, the productivity, and the profitability. When you piece that all together for us in Palm Beach at the connector free zone, I thought that was just brilliant because it helped me solidify that concept. And now putting a lifetime extender of your company on that is that's just going to drive. That's the emotional energy that I see it fitting in nicely in the lifetime extender group. So,
Well, the thing I saw with Keegan Caldwell was that now you have a specific reason for creating intellectual property and getting it
yes.
documented because it's taking the valuation of you can actually measure the increase of value of your company. Okay.
Well,
And
and even for financial stability, like if we have, if there's downturns and it's like, well, hey, I've got this. This is what my IP is worth, and getting a 50% loan on that is so nice instead of selling equity in your company.
yeah, yeah. And I'd rather deal with that type of bank, which is in love with intellectual property, than a standard bank, where you don't know what their attitude. I mean, that they love your house and they want your house and your ranch and
Right.
anything that's not nailed down. They love that, but they've always loved what I would call tangible assets. But these are intangible assets, and Keegan also said a third thing, which I find very amazing. He said the valuation for the fastest growing companies are 80% on their intangibles and only 20% on their
Wow.
tangibles.
Wow. Yeah, it's a whole new world we're living in. And one good news about you being 78, your halftime party is you're just as excited and curious as you've ever been, and more ambitious than you've ever been too.
And
And
this is an intangible. I mean, this is, you know, uh, some people say, well, you have no right to be acting the way, thinking and acting the way you are. But actually, it's more and more. I don't need to be doing what I'm doing, but I want to be. I mean, it's the difference between needing and wanting.
yeah.
And I haven't needed my success for 20 years, but I've wanted my success more and more, for that. So I think that, yeah, I think it's a yeah, I think you put your finger on it. It's a whole new world, and it's a whole new world of medicine and healthcare. And anyway, but a few words about the lifetime extender, because I got a feeling that you're going to be doing nothing but fielding emails and phone calls every time we have one of these sessions. I bet you've had some inquiries already.
Oh yeah, it's been really exciting. But the lifetime extender has been, it's nice to create relationships with people who have ambitious health goals. And not just like, hey, I need help with my diabetes, or I just had a cardiovascular event. I want my hormones fixed. It's just like, hey, what do I need to do? And so the Fitness 50 tool, the most inquiries I've received is, hey, how do we do these? And so I don't know if you've seen the videos
Yeah,
that
we have, and
um,
it's great. Thanks for the extra effort on that. Yeah.
oh yeah, no problem. They weren't. It wasn't perfectly done. My video editor, she's like, let's do them again. I'm like, let's launch
No,
it
no.
so people can
Yes, it's
start
launch.
on it.
Yeah.
But no, I'm just excited to see what comes from it, because just from that first session that we did, so many new thoughts started to circulate from it. And so from the beginning to the end, my confidence level in my own health goals, I started creating the what needs fixing checklist. And just by creating the what needs fixing checklist gave me a lot of energy. And then I've introduced the Fitness 50 concept to my group here, my
Oh,
community.
yeah.
They love it. So I'm so glad you created that. I mean, talk about
The two, I could tell you, the two that are giving people the stiffest, what I would say, challenge are the hanging,
The dead hang. Yeah.
the dead hang. People have really weak grips. I mean, I'm that one. I'm probably in the fitter stage. I might be even
Nice.
at the fitter stage. I have really strong, I have really strong grip. But the other one is burpees. I mean, burpees.
Oh.
Burpees. I mean, what is it? 50 in 2 minutes. That's
If you and you got to be popping it. I mean, I'm not there yet, but if you can get, even if you can get 50 in 4 minutes, I mean, that's some endurance. And so burpees are nobody's favorite, but they're one of the best things for you.
yeah. I remember at a Genius Network, Joe Polish and I think it was
Joe DeSena.
Randy Zuckerberg. It was
Oh yeah. Okay.
Mark Zuckerberg's younger sister was
That's right.
and they did 50 right on stage, And Joe had been under the tutelage of this crazy guy who does 1,000 a day or whatever, you
The
know.
Spartan guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I said, a guy like that should take up knitting or something, just to develop some fresh nerve pathways. I said,
he's a guy that carries around a
he
kettlebell
carry,
everywhere he goes.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, but
Yeah, he wants what he wants too, right?
takes all kinds. It's kind of like the guy who was the first one to free climb El Capitan in
Yeah.
Yosemite. I forget what his name is, and but he won they won the documentary award that year at the Oscars. And the interesting thing about him, he told to the film crew, he says, "I just want you to know, if I fall and you don't catch it on camera, you don't get paid."
That's awesome. He wanted to be
That
filmed.
other people can learn from this. He said, I don't want you to waste my attempt here, But
Wow.
but he's got a different kind of nervous system, a guy like
Yeah.
that. I mean, he doesn't see heights, he doesn't see the way that I see them, yeah.
Now his risk tolerance is yeah, that's extreme.
Yeah, and toes. I mean, he does a lot of the work with his toes, he has to catch a little niche and he has to push his entire body weight up, with it and
Uh,
everything like that. But I mean, normally that takes more than if they start at 8 o'clock in the morning with ropes and pinions. A lot of them have to sleep on the face overnight. They have
right.
sleeping,
Yeah.
they and everything like that. So, but he did it in, I think, 4 hours start to finish. So that's about 3,000 feet.
So impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't need that. I don't need that type of excitement and fear,
You got your excitement and fear every quarter with the new workshops
Yeah, I
and
have to tell you, the things that you look at other people and you say, I don't imagine how they could deal with that. And yet, when they turn around and look at you and what you do, they would say, and one of my examples, I had a fundraiser for wounded GIs in
Mhm.
Chicago. When I first started the idea of the free zone, we started doing some annual testing with it, and I put together a program about it. And we charge, 3,000, 2,000 or 3,000 for it. And then we just gave, after expenses, we just gave all the money to injured GIs. And
Wow.
but we had some people there, and we had one guy who had done 5 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan and had been near death a couple of times with his injuries, and he was operated on in a field hospital where the doctor was actually at Walter Reed Hospital, so they had one of those Da Vinci robots.
Yeah.
So he was being operated. He wouldn't have lived if they didn't have the surgeon in Washington, D.C. to operate on him while he was in, I think it was Afghanistan. And so, he got up and gave his talk and everything else, and then afterward, I was putting people through their strategic coach, for the day, strategic coach thinking to exercises. And he came up to me and he said, I can't imagine doing what you're doing. He said, I would find that so scary. He said, there's no battlefield I've ever been on that's scary than what I just saw you do.
There you go. Yep. That's awesome. Well, Dan, this has been amazing. I've really appreciated this conversation and your new tool.
The company lifetime.
That company lifetime is going to be fun. I'm going to see you next week in Chicago.
Yeah, well, actually, if you can do it, it'll be self-explanatory. I mean,
Oh,
it's
yes. Yeah.
self-explanatory, but you just punch in the numbers that correspond to the way I did it, and then you write down what the impacts are on your thinking, and then you just say, what am I proud about the company I've created so far? What am I excited? What am I confident about what we're doing, and what am I excited about the future? And when we show it, I think I'd like to have a buddy in the audience or in the in the room, and you can just talk about from your standpoint of what it does to your thinking.
Love it. Okay, send it over. I'd be happy to do it.
Okay.
Thanks again, and for all of you who want to get in touch with Strategic Coach, learn more about it, I highly recommend it. It's been a lifesaver for me. You can go to strategiccoach.com. Dan, anything else we should?
Yeah, and we're going to send this out. If we can get the copy of it, we'll send it out to our entire, our podcast list. And so, if you can just tell them how the contact East West Clinic, what the contact is there.
Love it. So just go to acueastwest.com, acueastwest.com, and we'll take care of you from here. Awesome. Thanks so much, Dan. Take care, everybody.
Thanks a lot, Regan.
Bye-bye.
Bye.